and gang, back live in the Secret Stash. Hanging out with your host, Jesse Ibanez, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group, helping folks get into and out of homes. You can check out more about what we do down at thegreenhousegroup.com. In the studio today with my man, Jim Scott. Jim is a certified family law specialist, attorney at law over at scottfamilylaw.net. That's actually a good place to start, Jim. So it's kind of a unique angle, you might say, on a very familiar conversation. Someone pops into you at like a cocktail party or something. You know, they say, "Hey, Jim, what do you do? What's your best response for that?"
I tell them it's top secret. They press me, no. Tell us, what do you do?
Yeah, then they either move towards you or they move away from you, right? That's a good tester right there.
I tell them, well, it's sort of like telling you that I'm a tax collector, and it's about that exciting. Eventually it gets around to family law, and there's so many people who have been through family court or been through the child support court that inevitably the subject comes around to, well, when I got a divorce or my best friend is going through a divorce, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting too. We've talked about this a couple different times in previous episodes about the percentage. It's most people think that it's trending anywhere around 50%. Failure rate, you might say, or success rate, depending on what side of the glass you're looking at.
Is
that true for you?
It is almost 50%, but we have to recall that there are repeat offenders. I've had people that I've done, more than one, that I've done 2 divorces for, or 3, and
they just love hanging out with you, Jimbo.
Yeah, might be. It might be that they like variety too, but. I think that kind of skews the numbers, that there are people who are, going on their 3rd relationship, even their 4th relationship.
Yeah, fair enough. I love that context, too, because there's there's only a small handful of people that at any social gathering are going to seek out the guy who claims he's the tax collector or the family law specialist, right? But I mean, the truth is that both of those things, what's the old adage? There's only 2 truisms in life, death and taxes. And the other truth is that about half of us are going to go through this space at least one time in our life, or have someone very close to us that either is or already has, right?
That's true.
So it's a critical piece of the conversation.
And there are going to be a lot of people who come in for a consultation kind of in the hypothetical, well, if I did, what would happen? And we try to give them as much guidance as possible. I know I've gotten into trouble with one of my friends who's a psychologist who says I'm giving out marriage therapy, and I'll try to stay away from that. The real niche that I have that has kind of evolved in our office is representing professional athletes.
Ooh.
And
that's germane to ESPN. Let's play on that thread.
Well, it sure is. I found myself about 3 years ago representing 3 of the starting defenders for the Chargers at the same time, and that's kind of a subject into itself, where you have a relatively short, high-earning career, and there's a special area of the law that applies to that, where we try to get the child support below what the guideline would be, because these people have such a short, peaked career.
Right. That makes sense, actually. That's really interesting. And I would also imagine, and I don't know, I don't have anything to back this up, so I'm back over in opinion land again, but there's probably a higher, you'd mentioned, fail rate with athletes too, just because of the nature of, I would just say athlete, I would say like just famous people, like musicians, artists, athletes, like people who have that incredible earning thing that goes on that's linked with the popularity.
Well, I think that's it's definitely correct with entertainers and professional athletes, and what they have in common is they're extremely hardworking. Yeah. When you look at the hours that are put in by a major leaguer, by someone who's in the NBA or the NFL, it's just insane. And I've been in the homes of these guys who come in from being on the road, and their duffel bag gets dropped at the front door, and they just want to sit down and relax with a cold iced tea.
Or something better. Yeah. No, Jim, that's actually a really, really good point. You know, and it's sort of woven in. It's like, you know, our culture wants that to be the thing that everybody goes for, right? Because it's sexy, it's fun, there's all that money and stuff. But I mean, the truth is, man, you're really relegating yourself outside of that margin of what you would normally think of as the life that everybody wants for themselves. Like, you're married to your craft. If you've got a career, and this is God willing, this isn't like if you go bust your knee or something on a Wednesday night up in Sacramento. Like, your career is what, 10 years at best, if you're lucky? And that's if you're really good?
Yeah, there aren't many that go 10 years in any one of these sports, or even as a celebrity.
Right.
You know, I think Prince was the one who said, everybody loves you when you're young.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. But, you know, so maybe tying this back in, I think you did a good job at that, saying that this is something you mentioned niches or whatever. Anything else you want to play on that before moving back into some of these cases?
Well, it's exciting to, watch a sporting event and recognize my clients out there. But the people that I really enjoy working with the most are just middle-class people like myself, where I can feel at the end of the day that I have helped them. And maybe that help is, in counseling and just putting their mind at ease that we're going to get them through it. Everything's going to be okay, and they will be off to a new chapter in their life.
I love that thought. That's well said, well put. So maybe that's a good so like, let's say someone right now is hearing you for the first time and you're resonating with them, or maybe they're going through a spot right now where they need some help, they feel alone. And so, like, let's say they reach out to you, right? Maybe they go to scottfamilylaw.net, or they call you at 858-794-4900. Like, what happens then? So what does your process look like from there?
Well, it can start with a short conversation on the phone. We don't charge for a 10-minute consultation. We have to do the background to make sure that there's no conflict of interest, that kind of thing.
That's important.
We have to do some basic statistics before we start the conversation, but people hang with us, and then if they want to go on from there, we'll do a consultation in the office, which usually takes about 2 hours.
That makes sense. And I also love the thought of the 10-minute thing, too, because you're not overcommitting or overextending yourself beyond what you're comfortable giving away, and also it gives them an opportunity to kind of pitch their situation, almost like, like a Shark Tank episode. They're like, hey, here's where I'm at. And then you, the expert, can hear them and say, all right, yeah, I feel like we got something here.
Well, I spoke to one lady recently, and she said, I just wanted to hear your voice to see if I could click with that or not.
Well, Jim does have a deadly voice for radio, does he not, Adrian? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're looking good, man. Looking good. Also live right now on the Twitter. We got any questions for Jim on Twitter yet? I saw there's a bunch of people streaming in live right now over at Follow the Stash, so maybe we'll get a question before the end of the show. So very cool. So they come in, and then they have the probably more like a 2-hour consultation. And at that point in time, are you pretty comfortable that you know whether or not you can take them on as a client?
At the end of the 2-hour consultation, I can usually predict the outcome of the case.
Oh, wow. Wow, so there's like a little magic ball that pops up from the middle of the table.
It's 34 years of experience and thousands of divorces.
Yeah.
I've easily done 250 trials and
wow,
I don't know how many hundreds of settlements. And, based upon that kind of experience and training, if someone gives me a lot of accurate information, I can be pretty darned accurate in predicting the outcome.
And that's got to be one of the challenges, isn't it, Jim? I mean, people cutting it to you straight. Is that a big problem in your industry where people feel like they need to give you the version that they think is going to win versus the truth?
That is a big problem, and we really try to stay away from people who do that.
I could imagine.
If there's some kind of problem in the background, the attorney is there confidentially in a privileged situation. The person needs to share that so the attorney can deal with the problem up front, defuse it, and move on.
Yeah.
This is one of the key concepts of Jerry Spence training. No case is perfect. Nobody's life is perfect.
Yeah.
So if there's some kind of a ding in the background out there, who knows what that could have been? They were arrested when they were 19 years old, never charged. Maybe they've got a DUI. Whatever it is, we want to get that out first. We want to deal with it and move forward.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that you basically could tell how the whole thing goes. Isn't it also true that a lot of these things settle? So, I mean, do you really have to go in and do the whole punch and brawl fight thing?
Almost all of them settle.
Right. Okay, right.
We're very effective at, instead of going old school and sending out a process server, I'll call up the other party and say, this is going to be a little difficult, but here's who I am. And, your spouse has come in and hired me to do this. And I'd like to invite you to come in, and I'm going to put out a timeline here and show you the procedures and show you exactly how I want to keep this out of court.
Yeah.
You're welcome to bring someone with you who cares about you. You're welcome to bring an attorney with you.
Right. Yeah, I love that thought. Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know. I've heard it said, obviously I'd defer to you and your infinite experience on this, but, when it goes to court, at that point in time, you could also make the argument that hardly anybody ever wins, right? It's like both people have sort of left it all out there at that point
correct.
in time. It's like a relief that it is a victory.
It's not like a consumer attorney case where where you're up against a big insurance company and you ring the bell for a couple $1 million. It's not at all.
Well said.
Where we win is we make our settlement offers in writing, and we put a little kicker at the bottom of the offer that says, if you don't accept this or we don't settle this case in some way, we're going to show this offer to the judge as soon as the trial's over on the issue of attorney fees. Don't expect us to be paying your fees because you wouldn't settle, in other words.
That sounds good, Jimbo. And I'll tell you what also sounds great is the fact that you wrote a book. And you not only wrote this book, but you are offering up this book for free for anybody that wants to learn a little bit more about you and what you do. And we're going to have this book actually live over on secretstashradio.com. We'll probably have that up. In all truth, Adrian, it's probably going to take about a day to get that up, right? Maybe a day or two. So you can go over there, write that website down, secretstashradio.com. It's Jim's 100 favorite California family code sections. And most importantly, though, it gives you a little primer as to the space that Jim occupies. You could probably grab that just as easily by going over to scottfamilylaw.net. That's Scott with 2 T's, familylaw.net. So, Jim, coming up, maybe we'll say final thoughts on this, right? I wanted to make sure that we sort of grab that topic on the first segment, and then we pull the whole thing together and make sure that everybody knows exactly what you're doing in the days, weeks, and months ahead from your appearance here in Stash Nation for the first time. So Real Talk Radio, we'll be right back.